My mother-in-law kept undermining my parenting, so I sent her the photos of her precious son's DUI arrest that he never told her about. It started small. Vivian would slip my 4-year-old daughter Piper candy before dinner, then shrug when I objected. "A little sugar never hurt anyone," she'd say with that patronizing smile. When I established screen time limits, she'd hand Piper her iPad the moment I left the room. "Children need to learn technology," she'd lecture. But it escalated fast. Vivian began telling Piper that Mom's rules didn't apply at Grandma's house. She bought toys I'd specifically said no to. She fed Piper foods I'd mentioned were triggers for her sensitivities, then acted shocked when meltdowns followed. The breaking point came during Piper's 6th birthday party. I'd planned everything carefully. Dairy-free cake because of her allergies, small guest list because she gets overwhelmed, quiet activities instead of chaos. Vivian showed up an hour early with a regular chocolate cake and invited 3 additional families I didn't know. "Children need to learn resilience," she announced while Piper hid behind my legs, overstimulated and breaking down. "You're raising her to be too sensitive." When Piper started crying from the dairy she'd snuck her, Vivian rolled her eyes. Drama queen, just like her mother. That night, my husband Garrett defended his mom again. "She's just trying to help," he said, the same excuse he always gave. "She raised me fine." Did she, though? Because 3 months earlier, I'd gotten a call at 2 a.m. from the county jail. Garrett had been arrested for DUI after a work event. Blood alcohol nearly twice the legal limit. I'd bailed him out, driven him home in shame and silence. "Please don't tell Mom," he'd begged. "She'll lose respect for me." I'd agreed to keep quiet while he got help. He attended AA meetings and therapy. We worked through it together. But I'd kept every document, every photo of that booking mugshot, every piece of evidence of his lowest moment. The morning after the birthday disaster, Vivian called to lecture me about being too controlling with Piper. "You're damaging that child with your helicopter parenting," she snapped. "My son deserves a wife who—" I hung up and opened my laptop. The email was simple. "Since you think your son is perfect and I'm such a terrible parent, perhaps you'd like to see what your precious boy was doing 3 months ago while I was home with Piper." I attached everything. The mugshot, the police report, the court documents, photos of him stumbling out of the car. Then I hit send. My phone rang within minutes. "How dare you?" Vivian screamed. "This is blackmail." "No," I said calmly. "This is consequences." Garrett came home an hour later, face white with rage. "She's threatening to cut us off completely," he said. "The college fund for Piper, the house down payment we've been saving for, everything." I shrugged. "Probably should have thought about that before you chose her feelings over your daughter's well-being." "You've destroyed everything," he said. But I was just getting started. That evening, while Garrett sulked in the bedroom, I did some digging into Vivian's perfect facade. What I found in her late husband's old files made my DUI photos look like child's play. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow. Come alone. V." I couldn't fit what happens next in this short video. Watch the rest down below. The coffee shop Vivian chose was 30 miles outside town, the kind of place where truckers stopped for burnt coffee and day-old donuts. I arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner booth where I could watch the door. My phone was recording, hidden in my purse. Whatever she had planned, I wanted evidence. She walked in exactly on time, looking smaller than usual without her designer heels and perfectly styled hair. For the first time since I'd known her, Vivian looked her age, 73 and tired. She slid into the booth across from me without ordering anything. "You have no idea what you've done," she said quietly. "Enlighten me." Her hands trembled slightly as she opened a manila envelope. Garrett's father had gambling debts. Serious ones. The kind that get people hurt. She pushed a photograph across the table. A younger version of her husband, face bloodied, standing next to 2 men in expensive suits. Charles owed them nearly $500,000 by the time Garrett turned 16. They were going to kill him. Kill all of us. I stared at the photo, trying to process what she was telling me. "So I made a deal," she continued. "I had information about their money laundering operation, financial records Charles had stupidly kept. They'd leave us alone, and I'd keep quiet." "What kind of information?" Vivian's laugh was bitter. "The kind that could have put their entire organization in federal prison for decades. Shell companies, offshore accounts, bribes to city officials, everything." She pulled out more documents, bank statements, photographs, recorded phone conversations. "I've been sitting on this for 27 years. One phone call to the FBI and these people cease to exist. But they know I have it, which is why they've left us alone." I was starting to understand where this was going. "The college fund you threatened to cut off," I said slowly. "That's not your money. It's protection money," she confirmed. "They pay me to keep quiet. Have been since 1997. That house down payment? Also from them. Garrett's private school tuition, his college, his first car, all of it." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you just painted a target on my son's back," she said, her voice rising. "These people monitor our finances. They'll know something's changed when the payments stop. And when they come looking for answers, they'll find that mugshot you so helpfully documented and distributed." My stomach dropped. "They'll assume Garrett's become unreliable. A liability. Do you understand what happens to liabilities in their world?" I understood perfectly, but I wasn't backing down. "So you've been taking blood money for nearly 3 decades, using it to spoil your son while holding it over everyone's head like some kind of twisted power play? I kept my family alive. You kept them dependent," I shot back. "Garrett never learned to stand on his own because mommy always fixed everything with dirty money." Vivian's eyes flashed with anger. At least I protected him. What have you done? Exposed his weakness to the world, made him vulnerable. I exposed yours, I said calmly. And I'm not done. I pulled out my own envelope. See, while you were panicking about your perfect son's imperfect moment, I was doing my homework. Charles wasn't just keeping financial records, was he? Her face went pale. He was skimming, taking a cut of their laundered money and hiding it in accounts they didn't know about. That's why they really killed him, isn't it? Not the gambling debts. The theft. Vivian's hands had stopped trembling. Now they were clenched into fists. You don't know what you're talking about. Bank of Cayman Islands, account number 7749-8821-3366, currently holding $1.2 million that belongs to some very dangerous people. Money that Charles stole and you've been quietly accessing for years. I watched the blood drain from her face. How did you? Your late husband kept better records than you thought. I found his safety deposit box key taped under his desk drawer. Amazing what people leave behind when they die unexpectedly. The safety deposit box had been a gold mine, not just the Cayman accounts, but photographs, recorded conversations, and detailed logs of every transaction Charles had made, including the ones where he'd been stealing from his employers. You've been living off stolen money while pretending to be the perfect grandmother, using it to manipulate and control everyone around you. But here's the thing, Vivian. Those dangerous people you're so afraid of, they're going to be very interested to learn where their missing $1 million went. She stood up so fast she knocked over the salt shaker. You wouldn't. Try me. They'll kill Garrett too. Is that what you want? To make your daughter an orphan? I'd already thought about that. Not if he cooperates with the FBI. See, I've already contacted them. Agent Rebecca Torres from the White Collar Crime Division. She's very interested in meeting with us. Vivian sat back down heavily. What do you want? First, you transfer every penny of that stolen money back to its rightful owners, through proper legal channels with FBI oversight. That money is gone. I've been using it to what? Buy designer handbags? That ridiculous car? The money's still there, Vivian. All $1.2 million plus interest. I've seen the account statements. Her jaw tightened. Second, you enter witness protection after you testify against these people. No more contact with Piper, no more undermining my parenting. You disappear. I'll never see my granddaughter again. Should have thought about that before you chose blood money over family. And Garrett? Garrett gets to choose. He can testify with you and start fresh, or he can continue living in your shadow and deal with whatever consequences come. Vivian stared at me for a long moment. You're destroying a family. I'm freeing one. She gathered her papers and stood to leave. You have until tomorrow night to decide. I called after her. After that, Agent Torres gets everything, including the location of that Cayman account. I drove home in silence, hands shaking on the steering wheel. What I'd just done was either brilliant or catastrophically stupid, possibly both. Garrett was waiting in the living room when I walked in, Piper asleep on his lap while watching cartoons. Where were you? He asked quietly. Having coffee with your mother. His eyes narrowed. She called me, said you threatened her. I sat down next to them, smoothing Piper's hair. Did she tell you about the money, Garrett? What money? The money she's been using to control our lives for the past 6 years. The money that paid for your college, our wedding, this house down payment fund. He shifted uncomfortably. Mom worked hard. Your mom has been taking payments from organized crime figures for 27 years. Money your father stole before they killed him. Garrett went very still. That's impossible. I pulled out copies of the bank statements I'd photographed. Your father was skimming from money laundering operations. When they found out, they murdered him and made it look like a heart attack. Your mother's been paying them back ever since, using their own money to keep them from killing the rest of you. Garrett stared at the papers like they might bite him. This can't be real. It gets worse. She's been accessing a stolen account your father set up in the Cayman Islands. $1, $2 million that belongs to people who kill for less. No, he was shaking his head. Mom wouldn't. Your mom has been living off blood money, Garrett, using it to manipulate us, to undermine my parenting, to keep you dependent on her. Every time she threatened to cut off the college fund or the house money, she was threatening us with stolen cash from killers. I watched him process this information, saw the moment when denial shifted to horrible understanding. The times she knew things she shouldn't know, he said slowly. About my work, about our finances. She always said she had connections. Dangerous connections. Piper stirred in his lap, and he automatically began rocking her back to sleep. What happens now? Now we choose. The FBI wants our testimony in exchange for witness protection. New identities, new lives, far away from here. And if we refuse, those people find out about the stolen money eventually. When they do, they'll assume you knew about it. Maybe that you're planning to steal more. Garrett's face had gone gray. What about Piper? Piper gets a chance at a normal life. No more toxic grandmother filling her head with poison. No more blood money funding her education. Just us, making honest choices. He was quiet for a long time. I can't believe she never told me. Can you? Because looking back, there were signs. The way she always had cash when she needed it. How she seemed to know things about people in town that she shouldn't. Those mysterious phone calls she'd taken private. I thought she was just well connected. She was. To criminals. That night, after we'd put Piper to bed, Garrett sat at the kitchen table reading through every document I'd found. Bank statements, photographs, recorded conversations. The evidence was overwhelming. This one, he said, holding up a photo. I remember him. Uncle Eddie, Mom called him. He used to come to Christmas dinner when I was little. I looked at the photo. A heavy-set man with kind eyes, standing next to Charles at some family gathering. What happened to him? Mom said he moved away. When I was maybe 8 or 9. I asked about him for years. I checked the dates on the bank records. He disappeared right around the time these payments started. Garrett's face went white. You think they killed him too? I think your uncle found out what your father was doing. Maybe tried to stop it. He set the photo down with shaking hands. How many people died because of this? I don't know, but it stops with us. The next morning, Agent Torres called. Mrs. Montgomery, this is Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI. I understand you have information about organized crime activity. I do. Can you come in today? Bring whatever evidence you have. The FBI field office was a nondescript building downtown, all concrete and tinted windows. Agent Torres met us in the lobby, a woman in her 40s with graying hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Thank you for coming forward, she said, as she led us to an interview room. What you're describing could be the break we've been waiting for in a case that's been cold for decades. She spread our evidence across the conference table, examining each document carefully. The Torino family, she said finally. We've been trying to build a case against them since the 80s. Your father-in-law's records could be exactly what we need. What about protection? Garrett asked. For our daughter, full witness protection for all three of you. New identities, relocation assistance, financial support while you establish new lives. But you'd have to disappear completely. No contact with anyone from your previous life. What about my mother? Agent Torres's expression hardened. Your mother will be offered the same protection in exchange for her testimony. But given her level of involvement, she'll likely face charges for money laundering and receiving stolen property. She was protecting her family, I said. She was spending stolen money and intimidating witnesses. Torres replied bluntly. That's still a crime, regardless of motivation. That afternoon, we drove to Vivian's house. She answered the door looking like she hadn't slept, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. Have you made your decision? I asked. Come in. Her house felt different now that I knew the truth. The expensive furniture, the artwork, the perfectly manicured garden, all paid for with blood money. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, about freeing the family. And? You're right. Garrett deserves better than this. She looked at her son with something that might have been regret. I thought I was protecting him, but I was just trapping him in the same cage Charles built for me. She walked to her kitchen and pulled a manila envelope from beneath a stack of cookbooks. These are the account numbers for every penny I've touched over the years. Bank statements, transfer records, everything. The FBI can have it all. Garrett stared at his mother. Mom, I'm sorry, she said simply. I'm sorry I let you grow up thinking this was normal. Sorry I used dirty money to control your life. Sorry I put your daughter in danger. For the first time since I'd known her, Vivian sounded genuine. What will you do? I asked. Testify. Give them everything they need to destroy these people. Then disappear. The witness protection program? No. She shook her head. I won't spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. I have enough money hidden away, clean money, from before Charles got involved with them. I'll go somewhere far away and live quietly. You'll never see Piper again, Garrett said. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. She's better off without me. You both are. The next 6 months were a blur of depositions, grand jury testimony, and preparation for trial. The Torino family tried to intimidate us. Anonymous phone calls, cars following us home, threatening letters slipped under our door. But the FBI protection was thorough, and gradually the harassment stopped as arrests began. 18 members of the organization were indicted on charges ranging from money laundering to murder. The evidence Charles had gathered, combined with Vivian's testimony, painted a picture of decades of criminal activity. Vivian pled guilty to receiving stolen property and agreed to cooperate fully. In exchange, she received 5 years probation and forfeiture of all assets purchased with criminal proceeds. The day before the trial began, she came to say goodbye. Piper ran to her grandmother, oblivious to the adult complexities surrounding them. Grandma, are you staying for dinner? Not tonight, sweetheart, Vivian said, kneeling down to hug her. Grandma has to go on a long trip. When will you come back? Vivian looked at me, then at Garrett. I don't know, but I want you to remember that Grandma loves you very much. After Piper went to bed, Vivian handed me a sealed envelope. For when she's older, she said, to explain why I had to leave. She hugged Garrett goodbye, both of them crying. I'm proud of you, she whispered, for choosing them over me. She left that night and never contacted us again. The trial lasted 3 weeks. One by one, the members of the Torino organization were convicted and sentenced to decades in prison. The head of the family, Vincent Torino, received life without parole for multiple murders, including Charles Montgomery. We testified on the final day, telling our story to a packed courtroom. When it was over, Agent Torres walked us out through a side entrance. It's finished, she said. You're free to rebuild your lives however you choose. What about witness protection? Garrett asked. With the organization dismantled and most of its members imprisoned, you're not in immediate danger. But the offer stands if you change your minds. We chose to stay. 2 weeks later, the stolen money from the Cayman account was returned to its victims, small business owners who'd been extorted by the Torino family over the years. Seeing their faces on the news, getting their lives back, made everything worthwhile. Garrett started therapy to deal with the trauma of learning his entire childhood had been built on lies and violence. He quit the job his mother had helped him get and found work at a nonprofit helping families in crisis. I went back to school for social work, determined to help other families trapped in cycles of manipulation and abuse. Piper adjusted better than we'd expected. She missed her grandmother at first, but without the constant undermining of authority and boundary pushing, she flourished. Her sensitivities became manageable when they weren't being deliberately triggered. Her confidence grew when every rule wasn't being questioned by competing authority figures. 6 months after the trial ended, we had dinner with Agent Torres and her family. Over dessert, she mentioned that they'd found Vivian. She's in Costa Rica, Torres said quietly, living under her real name, working at a small clinic in a rural area. The locals think she's a retired nurse from America. Is she okay? I asked. She seems to be. From what our contacts tell us, she's found peace. I was glad. Despite everything, despite the manipulation and the years of undermining, Vivian had ultimately chosen to do the right thing. That counted for something. That night, I found Garrett on the back porch, staring up at the stars. Any regrets? I asked, settling beside him. About exposing her? No. He was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about that night you bailed me out of jail. How scared I was. How ashamed. The first thing I thought wasn't, I need help, or I could have killed someone. It was, how do I hide this from Mom? And now? Now I think about how I could have killed someone, how I put my family at risk, how I need to be better. He took my hand. You saved us. All of us. Even Mom, in a way. We saved each other. 3 years later, we bought our first house with money we'd earned ourselves. Piper started 2nd grade at a public school, where she made friends and learned to speak up for herself. Garrett's nonprofit work was featured in the local paper. I graduated with my MSW and got a job helping at-risk families navigate crisis situations. Sometimes I wondered about Vivian, whether she was truly happy in her quiet new life, whether she ever thought about the granddaughter she'd given up to protect. But mostly, I focused on building the life we'd chosen for ourselves. The last piece of evidence I'd never shown anyone was a letter from Charles to Vivian, written just weeks before his death. I'd found it tucked inside one of his record books. My dearest V, it began. If you're reading this, then my chickens have come home to roost. I never meant for it to go this far. What started as skimming a few thousand to pay my gambling debts turned into something I couldn't control. They own me now, and when they're done with me, they'll come for you and Garrett. There's money in the Cayman account. Clean money I saved before all this started. Enough for you and our son to disappear if you have to. But please, don't let Garrett follow in my footsteps. Don't let him think that shortcuts and easy money are worth the price we pay for them. I love you both. I'm sorry for the choices that led us here. Build a better life for our boy. One evening, I showed the letter to Garrett. He knew, he said, after reading it. Dad knew what would happen to him. He tried to protect you the only way he knew how, by leaving evidence that would destroy the people who killed him. By giving your mother the tools to choose a different path. She just took 27 years to use them. That night, I sealed the letter in an envelope and put it in our safe, next to the one Vivian had left for Piper. Someday, when our daughter was older, she'd need to understand the full story of where she came from and why we'd made the choices we did. But for now, it was enough that we were free. Free from manipulation, from secrets, from the weight of other people's crimes. Free to raise our daughter with honesty and boundaries and love that didn't come with strings attached. Free to build a marriage based on partnership instead of protecting each other from uncomfortable truths. Free to be exactly who we chose to be, without blood money or family expectations, or the fear that our past would catch up with us. The coffee shop where Vivian and I had met that day was torn down 6 months later, replaced by a small park where children played while their parents watched from benches in the shade. Sometimes I'd take Piper there, pushing her on the swings while she laughed and called for me to push higher. Mom, she said one afternoon, her small hands gripping the chains tightly. Do you think Grandma is happy where she is? I'd been wondering the same thing. I hope so, sweetheart. I miss her sometimes, but I like that you and Daddy don't fight anymore. We'd never fought in front of her, but children notice tension even when adults think they're hiding it. Fighting isn't always bad, Piper. Sometimes people need to disagree about important things, but not the mean kind of fighting. No, not the mean kind. She pumped her legs, trying to swing higher on her own. I'm glad we don't have secrets anymore. Out of the mouths of babes. That evening, I called Agent Torres to check on a case I was working on, a family trapped in a similar cycle of financial control and emotional manipulation. How's retirement treating you? She asked before we discussed business. Torres had left the FBI 6 months earlier to teach criminal justice at the local college. I miss the field work sometimes, she admitted, but I like helping students understand why people make the choices they do, the gray areas between victim and perpetrator. Any word on the Torino appeals? All denied. Vincent will die in prison. The others won't see freedom for decades. Good. You know what I find interesting about your case? She said. In all my years investigating organized crime, I've never seen someone choose to expose it from the inside like your mother-in-law did. She didn't have much choice. There's always a choice. She could have run, could have warned them, could have disposed of the evidence. Instead, she handed you the tools to destroy them. That takes courage. I thought about that conversation for days afterward. Had Vivian been brave or just trapped? Did her motives matter if the outcome was justice? Maybe the truth was messier than I wanted it to be. Maybe people could be manipulative and loving, controlling and protective, wrong and right at the same time. But that didn't change what I'd learned about setting boundaries and protecting my family. It didn't change the importance of choosing truth over comfort, even when the truth was painful. A year later, I got a call from an unknown international number. Hello? Is this the Montgomery residence? The voice was female, with a slight accent. This is Mrs. Montgomery. My name is Carmen. I work at a clinic in Costa Rica. Vivian asked me to call you. My heart stopped. Is she okay? She's dying. Cancer. She has maybe 2 weeks left. I sank into the nearest chair. She wanted to know if you'd come. She understands if you say no, but she'd like to see her granddaughter one more time. I looked across the room at Piper, now 9 years old, working on homework at the kitchen table. She'd stopped asking about her grandmother months ago, but I knew she still remembered. I'll have to talk to my husband. She's at the Clinica Santa Maria in San Jose. If you decide to come, ask for Carmen Rodriguez. That night, Garrett and I had the hardest conversation of our marriage. She's dying, I told him. He was quiet for a long time. Part of me wants to see her, to forgive her maybe. But another part of me thinks we're better off letting the past stay buried. What about Piper? That's what makes it so complicated. We talked until nearly dawn, weighing the risks against the possibility of closure. In the end, we decided to let Piper choose. Grandma is very sick, I explained to her the next morning. She's going to die soon, and she wants to see you. But she lives very far away now, and if we go visit her, it would just be once. We'd never see her again after that. Piper thought about this seriously. Why can't we see her again? Because she made some bad choices that hurt people. She's trying to make up for those choices by staying away from everyone used to know, including us. But she wants to see me now because she's dying? Yes. Piper nodded slowly. I think I want to say goodbye. So we flew to Costa Rica. The clinic was a small, whitewashed building surrounded by tropical gardens. Carmen Rodriguez met us at the entrance, a young woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. She's very weak, she warned us as she led us down a hallway lined with plants. The cancer has spread to her lungs and liver. She may not look like you remember. She didn't. Vivian lay propped up in a narrow bed, her once perfect hair now thin and gray, her face gaunt from illness, but her eyes lit up when she saw Piper. My beautiful girl, she whispered, holding out a trembling hand. Piper approached the bed cautiously. Hi, Grandma. You've gotten so tall and so pretty. For the next hour, we sat in that small room while Vivian told Piper stories about her childhood, about her late husband, about the person she'd been before fear and desperation had twisted her into someone else. I want you to know, she said to Piper, that everything bad that happened wasn't your fault, and it wasn't your parents' fault either. It was mine. I made choices that hurt people, and then I made more bad choices trying to fix the first ones. Mom says you were trying to protect Daddy. I was, but I was also trying to control him, control you, control your mother. That was wrong. Piper nodded solemnly. Are you scared to die? The bluntness of the question made me wince, but Vivian smiled. A little, but mostly I'm tired. I've been carrying secrets and guilt for so long. I'm ready to put them down. She looked at Garrett. I never apologized to you properly. For the lies, for using you, for putting you in danger. I'm sorry, son. I know, Mom. And I'm sorry I never let you be strong enough to protect your own family. You're a good father, better than mine was. Before we left, she pressed a small wooden box into Piper's hands. This was your grandfather's. He loved music, just like you do. Inside was a harmonica, polished smooth by years of use. He used to play for me when I was sad, Vivian whispered. Maybe you can play for someone who needs it someday. That was the last thing she said to us. Vivian died 3 days later, peacefully in her sleep. Carmen called to let us know and to tell us that she'd left instructions for her ashes to be scattered in the ocean. She didn't want a funeral, Carmen explained. She said she'd caused enough people enough trouble, but she wanted you to have this. It was a final letter, sealed and addressed to all three of us. My dear family, it began. Thank you for giving me the gift of saying goodbye. Thank you for raising Piper to be brave enough to forgive an old woman her mistakes. Thank you for choosing truth over comfort, even when it cost you everything. I know I can never make up for the years of manipulation and control. I know I hurt you in ways that may never fully heal, but I want you to know that watching you choose each other, choose honesty, choose to break the cycle, that gave my life meaning in the end. Piper, be kinder than your grandmother was. Be braver than your grandfather was. Trust your parents. They will never lie to protect you from hard truths the way I did. Garrett, you are the best thing I ever did with my life. I'm proud of the man you became despite me, not because of me. And to my daughter-in-law, who I fought at every turn, thank you for saving us all. Thank you for seeing what needed to be done and having the courage to do it. Thank you for loving my son and granddaughter enough to risk everything for their safety. The last of Charles's clean money is in an account I've set up for Piper's education. The account information is enclosed. Use it or don't. It's yours to choose. Live freely, live honestly, live without looking over your shoulders. All my love, Vivian. We used the money to start a scholarship fund for children from families affected by organized crime. Every year, we awarded grants to kids who'd lost parents, who'd been displaced, who were trying to build new lives after their worlds fell apart. Piper learned to play the harmonica. She wasn't particularly good at it, but she practiced faithfully. And sometimes in the evenings, she'd play simple melodies while we sat on the back porch watching fireflies. What was Grandpa like? She asked me one night. I never met him, but your grandmother said he loved music. I wish I could have met him. He made some bad choices that hurt a lot of people, but he tried to protect Grandma and Daddy. In the end, yes, he left them away to escape the trouble he'd caused. She thought about this while polishing the harmonica. Mom? Yeah? I'm glad we don't keep secrets. Me too, baby. And we didn't. As Piper grew older, we told her age-appropriate versions of the whole story. About her grandmother's crimes, about the trial, about the choice between safety and justice. About how sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything you thought you wanted. She handled it better than we'd expected. So Grandma wasn't really evil, she said when she was 12 and we'd told her the full truth. She was just scared and made bad choices. People are complicated, Piper. They can love you and hurt you at the same time. But you chose to stop the hurting. We chose to stop the cycle. Today, Piper is 15. She volunteers at the Scholarship Foundation, helping younger kids whose lives have been torn apart by crime and violence. She's everything her grandmother could have been: strong, empathetic, unafraid to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Last month, she wrote her great-grandmother's harmonica as part of a school report on family history. My great-grandfather made terrible choices that put his family in danger, she wrote. My grandmother tried to fix those choices but ended up making more bad ones. My parents chose to break the pattern even though it cost them security and relationships. I learned that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing the right thing even when you are afraid. She got an A. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I think about that coffee shop meeting with Vivian. About the moment when everything changed, when the careful facade of our family life cracked open to reveal the rot underneath. I think about the choice I made to expose it all, to burn down the comfortable lies we'd been living with. Whether it was revenge or justice or just exhaustion with being gaslit and manipulated. I think it was all of those things, but mostly I think about the family we built in the aftermath. The honest conversations, the real intimacy, the trust that comes from knowing you can weather any storm together. The Scholarship Fund has helped 47 kids over the past 8 years. Former gang members' children, witnesses' families, kids whose parents died testifying against organized crime. They send us updates, graduations, first jobs, weddings, babies. Last week, one of our scholarship recipients, now a federal prosecutor, called to tell me she'd just won a conviction against a human trafficking ring. I wanted you to know, she said, that the scholarship didn't just pay for college. It taught me that broken systems can be fixed. That someone always has to be willing to stand up and say enough. That conversation reminded me why Vivian's letter had been so important. Not just the money, but the acknowledgement that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs you everything, especially when it costs you everything. Garrett and I are stronger now than we ever were when his mother was pulling the strings. Our marriage is built on partnership and honesty instead of secrets and protection from difficult truths. We've learned to fight productively, to disagree without destroying each other, to face problems together instead of hoping they'll go away. Piper trusts us because we've never lied to her to spare her feelings or to make our lives easier. She knows that love doesn't mean never having to hear uncomfortable truths. She knows that real protection comes from preparing someone to handle reality, not from shielding them from it. The house we finally bought with our own money isn't as big as the one we'd planned to get with Vivian's blood money, but it's ours, earned through work we're proud of, furnished with things we chose because we liked them, not because they projected an image. There are pictures on our walls of the life we built together. Piper's artwork from school, photos from family trips we saved up for, Garrett's certificate from the nonprofit management program he completed, my social work degree, evidence of the choices we made and the people we became. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never sent those photos to Vivian. If I'd just continued to tolerate the boundary violations, the manipulation, the slow erosion of my authority as Piper's mother. We would have been comfortable, probably, financially secure, connected to a larger family network. We also would have been trapped. Piper would have grown up thinking that love comes with conditions, that authority can be undermined if you know the right people, that some rules apply to some people but not others. Garrett would never have learned to stand up to his mother, never have developed the confidence that comes from making your own way in the world. And I would have spent the rest of my life fighting a battle I couldn't win, watching my daughter learn that mom's word was meaningless compared to grandma's money and influence. The night before Piper left for summer camp last year, she came into our bedroom to talk. I've been thinking about Grandma, she said, settling between us on the bed like she used to when she was little. What about her? I'm glad she died knowing we were okay, that she got to see that her bad choices didn't ruin us. It was such a mature observation from a 14-year-old that I felt proud and sad at the same time. Proud that she could think about complex moral situations with such clarity. Sad that she'd had to learn these lessons so young. I'm glad too, I told her. Do you think she would be proud of who I am now? Garrett and I looked at each other across Piper's head. I think she'd be amazed, he said. You're everything she wanted to be but never learned how to be. Strong and honest and unafraid to do the right thing, I added. Even when it's hard. This morning, I got a call from Agent Torres, now director of the Criminal Justice Program at the State University. I have a favor to ask, she said. I'm teaching a course on organized crime and family systems. Would you be willing to guest lecture about your experience? What would you want me to talk about? The complexity of victim and perpetrator roles. How good people can make terrible choices when they're afraid. How justice and mercy can coexist. How breaking cycles of abuse and manipulation requires courage from everyone involved. I agreed. Next month, I'll stand in front of a classroom full of future law enforcement officers, social workers, and prosecutors. I'll tell them about Vivian, about Charles, about the choices we all made when faced with impossible situations. I'll tell them that sometimes protecting your family means exposing them to temporary danger, to free them from permanent harm. That sometimes love requires setting boundaries that feel cruel, but are actually kind. That sometimes the only way to save someone is to stop enabling them. I'll tell them that justice is messy, that victims can also be perpetrators, that doing the right thing doesn't guarantee a happy ending, but it guarantees a true one. And I'll tell them about Piper, about Garrett, about the life we built in the wreckage of the one we dismantled, about how truth, even painful truth, can set you free in ways that comfortable lies never can, because that's what I learned in the end. Not that family is everything, or that blood is thicker than water, or any of the other platitudes people use to justify tolerating toxic behavior. I learned that family is the people who choose to love you without conditions, who respect your boundaries even when they don't understand them, who support your growth even when it threatens their control. I learned that protection doesn't mean shielding someone from consequences. It means giving them the tools to handle whatever life throws at them. And I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst impulses, even when that refusal costs you everything you thought you wanted. The coffee shop where this all started is now a park where children play safely under their parents' watchful eyes. The dangerous people are in prison, the stolen money has been returned, the family secrets have been exposed and dealt with, and we are free to love without conditions, to trust without fear, to build a future based on choices we're proud to own. That freedom was worth everything it cost us to earn it.